Hi guys, this video is to help guide you through the assignment with working with the inverted layer mask and using the blur filter, as well as we're going to use a little bit of the clone stamp, and also using the inverted layer mask with different layer adjustments, and then painting things back out specifically that you want to pull through or soften something in a photo or whatever. So here we go. I've already pulled up Angelina, and let me just preface this with she absolutely needs no photoshopping, but here we go. It was the one we picked in class, so I'll go forward with it. So what I'm going to do is first hit Command 0 so I can pull her up full screen. And as we discussed, I was going to show you how to kind of soften some of this and remove some blemishes, that kind of thing. And then we're going to soften the skin through here and maybe some of the pores and the veins. So what I'm going to do is on my background, I'm going to hit Command J, which duplicates a layer, and then go turn off the original. And that way the original one is there if I need it or if something is messed up, or I can go back to it. So here we go. I've got this. So the first thing I'm going to do is go over, and right over here you're going to see something that's right under the paintbrush, and it's called the clone stamp tool. And if you just watch the little video for a minute, you can see that it can take a picture of something and then you can add it in. What I'm going to use it for is I'm going to take pictures of her flesh that surround it and then kind of get rid of this mole on her head. So I'm going to zoom in, and what I'm going to do here is grab my clone stamp tool, and if you see, the shortcut to that is S. So if you hit S, it'll take you to the clone stamp tool, and what you do is you actually hold the Alt key, and when the Alt key holds, it just takes a little replica of what you're on top of, and you can change the brush size with the bracket keys. The bracket on the right makes your brush larger, bracket on the left makes your brush smaller. So I'm going to go over here, hold the Alt key, click down on that, and then move it over here. And now if you see up at the top, it didn't cover it completely because sometimes I like to do it softly. You'll see that my opacity is at 70 and my flow is at 70. So the shortcut when you're working with your brush of any size, whether you're using your brush, your clone stamp tool, the brush, your mask and select, or even your eraser, you can change the opacity level of it. So if I only want an opacity of, let's say, 10%, I just hit 1 and the computer will take it to 10. If I want a opacity of 4 or 40, I hit 4. If I want of 70, I hit 7. If I want full 100%, I hit 0. And the same thing over here with flow, but instead of just hitting the number, what you do is you hit shift. So if I want a flow of 30%, then I hit shift 3. Or if I want a flow of 80%, I hit shift 8. And I want a flow of 100%, so I'm going to hit shift 0. So now when I take a photo, hold the Alt key and click down. I'm going to bring that over. It's going to cover it completely. And I'm going to keep doing this with the lighter, trying to get the flesh next to it and mix it in, look believable. So right there we were able to kind of get rid of some of that. And now what I might do is now take my opacity to maybe 50. So I'm going to hit 5. And I'm going to hit shift 5 for the flow to change that to 50 and make my brush larger. I'm going to try to soften some of this on the vein first. So I'm going to take a photo right here and kind of bring it over. And if you see, because it's not 100% opacity, so a little bit of it's still showing, but it softens it for certain. And then take a photo from over here. Then I can do the same thing kind of here. It just helps soften that a little. So what I'm going to do is zoom back out, and I'm going to turn the bottom layer on, and I'm going to turn the top layer off, and you can already see the difference of what we've done here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate the layer again, and I'm going to hit Command J, and then this is where we're going to kind of blur some of the flesh out. So I'm going to go to Filter, and when you go to Filter, go down to Blur, and then what we're going to use in this one is just a surface blur. So I'm going to go to the surface blur, and then we've blurred her out, and the radius And the threshold you can play around with. And don't worry, we're only going to be painting things out softly. So you can play around. I'm going to do like a 20 and 61 on her and hit OK. Well, obviously this doesn't, she looks photoshopped and fake. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to move this up for you, sorry. Down here is a layer mask. What we're going to do is use an inverted one. So if you hold the Alt key while you click on the layer mask, it will actually black everything that you've just done out. And so what we're going to do is with our paintbrush, we're going to slowly paint this out with a really low opacity and flow so we can slowly bring it through. So if your layer mask is black, then what we need to do is come over here and we need white as the foreground color. So I'm just going to click on these arrows and they'll switch and you can toggle back and forth that way. So then zoom in. And I'm going to grab my brush, back to that, or B for shortcut, through here, make certain this is selected, not the image, but the actual layer mask. And then what I'm going to do is with my brush, I'm going to start with a 20 and 20, which is already up there. And I'm going to slowly paint over some of these. I'm not getting rid of them completely because then it's just not believable. But this is so that blur that we have underneath, I'm slowly letting some of it seep through because I'm controlling the opacity and the flow up here to something low. And also her cheeks, her pores, we can soften this a little. And maybe I want to go up to 30, so I'll do opacity of 30. And so I just hit 3 to do that. Like I said, I'm not trying to get rid of them. I'm just softening. But if you wanted to get rid of them, you just keep going and keep going and keep going and see what's starting to happen here. And even in here, you can soften this, make my brush a little smaller. And you know, if you look over here, you're starting to see a white area kind of being painted through your mask. And that's these little areas that I'm working on. We soften this one, we soften in here. And I'm not going to do an entire face, that way you get the idea through the video, but you'll do this. And then here I'm going to make my brush a little larger and kind of soften some of these pores right here. Maybe not get rid of them completely because everybody has pores. And kind of soften some of them here. And through here, under her lip, make my brush smaller. And paint some of that blur out that we have underneath that we did with the surface blur. And then what I'm going to do now is kind of zoom out and turn this eye on and off so you can see the difference. So you can see already, so let's turn off that, let's turn off that. So we turn this back on, so we turn this one on, and we turn this one on, and you can see the difference of what starts happening. So it's a way to soften wrinkles or veins, but not necessarily, like I said, for it to be believable. You don't completely get rid of them because no one smiles and you don't have a wrinkle from smiling. I mean, that's just natural. But in Photoshop, you can soften these things. So, all right, good luck with this one. The next one, remember, we were going to do for the second part of the assignment is just kind of using the inverted layer mask again, but playing around with like changing a color or a brightness of something. So what I've done is, where is he? I've gotten my little guy, Mr. Avalon Blue, and what I want to do is maybe I want Avalon Blue's eyes to match his harness, so he can have like a lavender tint to his eyes. So the same thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to do Command J, make a duplicate layer, and then turn off my original, and I'll have the original underneath if I need it for anything, also for comparison. So the first thing I do, knowing that I am only focusing on his eye color, I'm about to play around with a bunch of layer adjustments. And in doing so, I'm knowing that I'm going to black out everything and just paint that out. So I'm not going to pay attention to what it's doing to anything else on him. So you can either do it with adjustment layers and then merge all those layers, or what I'm going to do, I'll play with the adjustments over here for now. So I'm going to go to first, let me do hue saturation. And let me play around and see what's happening to his eyes. Remember, I'm focusing, oh, there we go. I'm focusing on his eyes, kind of having a lavender tint to him. Oh, blue's pretty too. How about somewhere in between? So handsome. There he is. Okay, so now what I want to do is maybe go back to adjustments, and maybe I want to play with exposure. And what I'll do is I can watch his eyes get brighter, but I'm thinking with this I'm losing too much of the purple, so I'm going to go down a little with exposure. That's really beautiful. And then adjustments, what else might I want to play with? Let's go to curves. And curves lets us play with red, green, and blue all at once. Something along those lines. Or you can drop down and just play with blue within the image and float around a little like this. Ooh, yeah, look at that. So I'm going to hit OK. So let's say I've got him the way I want him. And what I'm going to do is turn that layer back on underneath, and then I'm going to hold the Alt key. I've blacked out the mask, right? And so making certain that I'm touching it, and I've got my brush, and these are pretty intense, and I'm going to zoom in because I'm just going to be getting this part of his eye. I'm going to start slow, so I'm going to do 10 and 10. So I'm going to hit 1 and shift 1, and that changes my opacity and my flow. And I'm going to come in and slowly start painting out his eyes. See what's starting to happen? So now Avalon Blue can have eyes that match his harness. But I'm doing this slow. And that way I can control it. And so I'm slowly letting, because of my opacity and my flow, I'm slowly letting some of that color change come through. And we'll go over and do the other eye. Make my brush a little bigger. And you can just kind of watch it happen. And then you can control it this way. And make my brush a little larger again. Kind of get in here, get this part of his eye. There we go. Go over here. And with Command 0. And I had changed his eye color, but just ever so slightly. It's not like intense and it's not in your face. It's come through and I've been able to paint it out, and it keeps all the shadows. And so if you want to see before and after, just turn the eye on and off. And it goes from like a hazel green or a hazel green, I guess, to a lavender. And that's how you use layer adjustments and also working with the inverted layer mask. All right.